I think we have an opportunity in the next 4 to 6 years to prevent kinetic American forces, countrymen on countrymen, from ever meeting. And I think that is incumbent upon all of us. Although I have no doubt that we'd be victorious if that ever happened.
Because, if our election systems continue to be rigged and continue to be stolen, then it's going to lead to one place, and it's bloodshed.
I'm telling you, when I see the people that are in Washington, D.C. who are trying to insert their woke politics into our culture, trying to destroy Western civilization. We want our country back, we want our culture back, and if you want to stand in the way of that, we will run you over.
There's nothing that I would dread doing more than having to pick up arms against a fellow American.
Our culture today is trying to completely demasculate all of the young men in our culture. If you are raising a young man, please raise them to be a monster. Kyle Rittenhouse is not guilty, my friends. You have a right to defend yourselves. Be armed, be dangerous, and be moral.
It's time for us, in Genesis, it talks about taking dominion of the earth. You read that original word. I mean, it means go out and take control of it. Dominate the earth that you're given.
Remember that Zelensky is a thug. Remember the Ukrainian government is incredibly corrupt, and it is incredibly evil, and it has been pushing woke ideologies, and it really there's the new woke world.
That's North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn, and legend has it that tree is still standing. He's punching on that wet tree. By the way, so Madison Cawthorn, he's been getting a lot of attention. He likes to say incendiary things, especially when it's to please his dad, Donald Trump. I'm not lying. He has said he's like a dad to him, to please him as many ways as possible. But right now, the Republican Party, although they're willing to listen to him further, and specifically the North Carolina Republican Party, they're tired of watching him walk around as if he's the kingmaker of the party there. So he's stepping on some toes. Let's get into details of how Republicans just aren't very happy with him anymore. The 26-year-old first-term North Carolina Republican saw both candidates he endorsed in Texas's March 1st GOP congressional primaries lose, even failing to advance to the May 24th runoff. Those missteps seem unlikely to damage Cawthorn's reputation within grassroots conservatives nationally, but they do enjoy his combative tongue lashing of GOP leaders and other Republicans he brands to establishment. But in North Carolina, Republican insiders say Cawthorn's efforts to play kingmaker and to constant threats to campaign against fellow Republicans he deems insufficiently conservative, combined with a litany of personal foibles, are beginning to turn figures across the party against him. So they mentioned those foibles, and I think it was just last week we saw that he was pulled over and I don't know if he was cited or arrested this time again for driving with a suspended or revoked license, speeding, all these types of things. He keeps getting caught up in his driving situations. I'm not sure if they're gonna do anything about that, but that's some of the foibles. But what's causing his act to wear thin? Let's continue on. Party operatives in the state say that there are two problems in particular with Madison Cawthorn. Again, it's not that stuff that we just saw. Cawthorn's initial move to switch districts, which was later reversed, and his attempt to decide the political fate of the rest of the state's GOP delegation by fancying himself as a kingmaker in 11 House seats drawn to elect Republicans in an earlier version of redistricting is really what has them. So let's really fast. This redistricting drawing back and forth that they're upset at him over. After they reviewed the initial map, Cawthorn declared that he would exit his Western North Carolina seat, the proposed new 14th congressional district, which is anchored in Asheville, and run for re-election in the proposed 13th district, which is in Charlotte. Both were drawn to elect Republicans easily, but a district in the Charlotte media market promised more statewide coverage and a better springboard for statewide office. So he wanted some more attention, so he was trying to switch districts. Now that's before this hurdle jumped up and tripped him, and then he flipped back and forth. When this map fell through, Cawthorn went back to a newly configured 11th district and moved to muscle out Michelle Woodhouse, a Republican he had endorsed to take his place in the state's far western district and personally encouraged her to run. And Woodhouse has refused to do that, and now she's one of his angry opponents. Now there's more he was doing when he was telling people what they should do, and he's the new Trump. I think he's getting caught up too much in the power trip of Trump telling him that he's his extension in North Carolina. But right now, there's a lot to respond to. First, I put that mashup together of all the craziness that Cawthorn likes to talk about. Republicans aren't mad about that stuff. They're mad, Adrian, that he is saying, I'm gonna choose who's gonna be the right representatives in this state, and I'm gonna get the biggest ticket possible.
You know, I think from that mashup, at least we can see that Cawthorn is a professional jackass. There is really nothing that man has to offer, and also nothing he would not do to praise his beloved Trump, but also just to stay in power. And as we saw with the attempt to get him out in terms of off of the ballot, you know, it really shows that he is willing to go the distance in order to maintain this MAGA right mentality. And he's very dangerous for our nation, if not just the state of North Carolina. And I do not know what the constituents are gonna do, but I do hope they make the right decision. And if that means voting for Woodhouse over Cawthorn, please go ahead and get it done, because it needs to be done, because this young man, he's just a wealth of nonsense and shenanigans, but to the tune of essentially undermining our democracy.
Apparently you should raise your boys to be monsters, as he said. Monsters. So by the way, the monster of the Republican Party, last part about this is what has these North Carolina Republicans so upset. The congressman also laid out districts he wanted incumbent Republicans to run in. In open seats he endorsed. For instance, Cawthorn picked former Representative Mark Walker for the 7th district, even though he's running for the Senate. The public presumptiveness infuriated many North Carolina Republicans, including and especially the prominent and more veteran members of the state's Republican delegation. And lastly, what they're saying about him, Cawthorn is not well regarded within Republicans statewide, is what an experienced GOP strategist said. Many of us think he's an embarrassment to our party and the state. Again, as pointed out, we're talking about this Republican infighting. We're talking about this Republican infighting. They're not upset about that stuff. They're not upset about all things you just saw about the Civil War and I gotta take up arms against my brothers and I don't want to have to do that, but we'll win anyway because we'll shoot those libs in their face. None of that stuff. But he's over here trying to tell us who to run, who to run and where they should run. Then he switches districts and goes back and forth. Who does he think he is? Donald Trump's biggest fan? That's exactly what he thinks he is, and he's been emboldened by people like them who still won't point out the things that's actually wrong with this guy.
Yep, and the scary thing is that it doesn't seem that he's being held accountable in any form or fashion for his antics. And so it does seem like he's almost a Donald Trump Jr. The way that he seems to continue to be able to skirt back and forth and also have the support of the far right Republican Party. And again, it is scary.